Welcome everyone. I'm excited to kick off this presentation on OUTCOMES of democracy. Today, we'll explore what democracy really means for societies and individuals alike. We'll look at the key benefits, challenges, and the impact democracy has on our lives. So, let's get started and discover how democracy shapes our world. Let's explore the outcomes of democracy. At its core, democracy aims to uphold the dignity and freedom of every citizen. This means ensuring that everyone is treated with respect and has the liberty to express themselves. Another key aspect is the accommodation of social diversity, recognizing and embracing different cultures, beliefs, and backgrounds within society. Reducing inequality and poverty is also a fundamental goal, working toward a more equitable society where opportunities are accessible to all. An accountable, responsive, and legitimate government is essential, one that listens to the people's needs and acts transparently. But how do we measure if democracy is truly delivering these outcomes? One way is by assessing how well it upholds the dignity of women, ensuring their rights and freedoms are protected. Similarly, we look at economic growth and development. Are these improving people's lives? All these points, dignity, social diversity, equality, economic progress, are interconnected. They reflect the broader expectations we have from democracy, such as fairness, justice, and participation. Ultimately, the outcomes of democracy are about creating a society where everyone can thrive with dignity and freedom, and where the government genuinely serves the people. Let's talk about the outcomes of democracy. When we think about democracy, it's not just about voting or elections, it's about the broader impact on society. One key outcome is the promotion of political participation, meaning that citizens have a real voice and influence in decision-making. This encourages active engagement and a sense of ownership over our government. Another important point is the protection of rights and freedoms. Democracy ensures that individuals can express their opinions, practice their religion, and enjoy personal freedoms without fear of oppression. This creates a more open and tolerant society. Democracy also tends to lead to accountability and transparency in governance. Leaders are answerable to the people, which helps prevent corruption and abuse of power. Finally, the overall stability and legitimacy of the government are enhanced in a democracy, because people are more likely to accept and support decisions when they feel involved and heard. All these outcomes connect directly to our larger theme of how democracy shapes a fairer, more inclusive society where everyone's voice matters. Allow me to highlight some key reasons why democracy stands out as a superior form of government. First, it allows room to correct mistakes. When decisions don't work out, democratic systems provide mechanisms to address and fix issues. Second, it offers a way to resolve conflicts peacefully, through dialogue and legal processes, rather than violence or repression. Third, democracy improves the quality of decision-making because it involves diverse perspectives and participation, leading to more informed and balanced choices. Fourth, it enhances the dignity of each individual by respecting their rights and voices. Fifth, democracy promotes equality among citizens, ensuring everyone has a say and is treated fairly. Now, why do we say democracy is better compared to dictatorship or other forms? Because it encourages accountability, transparency, and participation, making governments more responsive to people's needs. But how do we assess whether democracy is actually delivering these outcomes? That's what we'll explore next, how we measure the effectiveness and impact of democratic systems in real life. While these features are common to most democracies, it's important to remember that these countries are actually very different from each other. Their social situations vary widely, their economic achievements differ significantly, and their cultures are unique. Today, over 100 countries around the world claim and practice some form of democratic politics. They all have formal constitutions that lay out the rules, they hold regular elections, they have political parties, and they guarantee certain rights for their citizens. But this raises an important question. How do we actually assess the outcomes of democracy? How do we measure whether a democracy is successful or not? That's what we'll explore next, looking at what democracy delivers in practice and how we can evaluate its impact on society. So, the citizens need to take advantage of the conditions created by democracy and work towards achieving those goals. It's important to remember that democracy itself can only set the stage. It creates the conditions for us to realize our aims, but it doesn't do the achieving for us. The first step in truly understanding democracy's outcomes is to recognize that democracy is fundamentally just a form of government. It's a system that structures how decisions are made, but it's not a guarantee of perfect results. Sometimes, when our expectations aren't met, it's easy to start blaming democracy itself. We might think that democracy should solve everything, but that's not quite accurate. Our fascination with democracy can sometimes lead us to believe it can address all socioeconomic and political problems. But it's crucial to remember that democracy is a tool. Its success depends heavily on how we use it and engage with it. And so, a key question is, how do we assess democracy's outcomes? How do we know if it's truly working? That's what we'll explore next. So, they can be very quick and efficient in decision-making and implementation. Some people think that democracy produces less effective government. It is, of course, true that non-democratic rulers do not have to bother about deliberation in assemblies or worry about majorities and public opinion. The most basic outcome of democracy should be that it produces a government that is accountable to the citizens and responsive to the needs and expectations of the citizens. In a democracy, people will have the right to choose their rulers, and people will have control over the rulers. When we talk about an accountable government, we mean a government that is responsible to the people, that listens to their concerns, and that can be held answerable for its actions. An accountable, responsive, and legitimate government is essential because it ensures that power is exercised in accordance with the people's will, and that officials act in the best interest of the citizens they serve. This is a core principle that ties back to our overall theme of democratic governance and the importance of citizen participation. So, a citizen who wants to know if a decision was taken through the correct procedures can find this out. This is known as transparency. Democracy ensures that decision-making will be based on established norms and procedures. This means that even though democracy might take more time, that cost of time is perhaps worth it. Because it follows procedures, its decisions tend to be more acceptable to the people and also more effective. Democracy is fundamentally based on the ideas of deliberation and negotiation, and because of that, some delay is inevitable. Moving on to the next point, we talk about accountable, responsive, and legitimate government. These are key qualities that make a government truly effective and trusted by its people. When governments are accountable, they answer to the people. When they are responsive, they listen and act on the people's needs. And legitimacy comes when the people believe that the government's authority is rightful and justified. All of these elements connect back to the overall theme of democracy, ensuring that decision-making is transparent, fair, and rooted in the people's will. When we look at how democracies perform in practice, the results are quite mixed. On one hand, democracies have been pretty successful in establishing regular and free elections, which is a cornerstone of democratic governance. They've also done well in creating the conditions for open public debate, allowing citizens to discuss and shape major policies and legislation. To really measure how well democracies are doing, we need to check whether elections are held regularly, freely, and fairly. We should also look at whether there is open debate on important issues and whether citizens have access to information about how the government functions. A healthy democracy develops mechanisms that enable citizens to hold their government accountable. That means they can ensure the government is acting in their interest. It also involves providing opportunities for people to participate in decision-making whenever they feel the need. This idea ties into the broader goal of having an accountable, responsive, and legitimate government, one that truly represents the people's will and maintains their trust. Ultimately, These elements are essential for the legitimacy and stability of any democratic system. At the same time, there is no clear evidence to suggest that non-democracies are less corrupt or more responsive to the needs of their people. When we look at democracies, their record isn't perfect, but it's generally better in two key areas: being attentive to what people need and want, and maintaining lower levels of corruption. These are important aspects because they directly impact how well a government serves its citizens. However, despite these advantages, most democracies still fall short when it comes to ensuring fair elections that truly give everyone an equal chance to participate, and in making decisions transparently through public debate and open sharing of information. This brings us to the core idea of accountable, responsive, and legitimate government. Democracy, at its best, aims to be accountable to the people, responsive to their needs, and seen as legitimate because of the fairness and transparency of its processes. These qualities are crucial because they build trust and ensure that governments truly serve the people's interests. So, while democracies are generally better than non-democracies in these respects, there's still room for improvement to make these systems work even better for everyone. Democracy's ability to generate its own support is a powerful outcome that we cannot ignore. Essentially, when people see that their participation matters and that their voices are heard, they become more committed to the system. Many believe that democracy is suitable for their country because it aligns with their desire to be governed by representatives they have chosen themselves. People want a say in how they are ruled, and elections give them that opportunity. Of course, a democratic government may sometimes be slow or less efficient, and it might not always be the most responsive or perfectly clean. But what truly matters is that it is the people's own government, one that they have a stake in and trust. This leads us to the idea of a legitimate government, one that is accountable, responsive, and truly legitimate in the eyes of the people. When a government is accountable, it answers to the people. When it is responsive, it addresses their needs and concerns. And when it is seen as legitimate, it has the moral authority to govern effectively. All these qualities, accountability, responsiveness, legitimacy, are what make democracy a system that not only governs, but also sustains itself through the support of its people. They are essential to understanding why democracy, despite its flaws, remains a preferred form of government for many nations. When we look at the rates of economic development, it turns out that the difference between less developed countries with dictatorships and those with democracies is actually quite small. It's a bit surprising, but the data shows that the gap isn't as large as we might expect. However, it's important to remember that economic development is influenced by many factors beyond just political systems. For example, a country's population size can play a big role, as larger populations might mean more human resources or, conversely, more challenges in managing growth. The global situation also matters. Things like international economic trends, global crises, or trade relations can all impact a country's growth. Cooperation from other countries, whether through trade agreements or aid, can accelerate development. And of course, the economic priorities a country adopts, like investing in infrastructure, education, or technology, are critical in shaping its growth trajectory. Now, if we take a broad view, considering all democracies and all dictatorships over the 50 years from 1950 to 2000, we find that dictatorships have slightly higher rates of economic growth on average. This suggests that while political systems matter, they are just one piece of a much larger puzzle when it comes to understanding economic development. When we see a significant difference in the rates of economic growth between countries under dictatorship and those under democracy, it's generally better to favor democracy. This is because democracy tends to have several other positive outcomes beyond just economic growth. However, it's also important to remember that we shouldn't assume democracy will always outperform dictatorships in this area. The relationship isn't absolute, and there can be exceptions depending on the context. Overall, what this tells us is that democracy is not a guaranteed path to economic development. While it often promotes better growth rates and positive societal outcomes, it's not a magic solution. It's crucial to consider the broader picture and other factors at play when evaluating the link between political systems and economic progress. Let's take a closer look at the people at the very bottom of society. They often have very little to depend on for basic needs or support. Meanwhile, a small number of ultra-rich individuals enjoy a highly disproportionate share of wealth and income. In fact, their share of the total income has been increasing over time, which highlights a growing gap between the rich and everyone else. Now, democracies are built on the principle of political equality. Every individual has an equal say when it comes to electing representatives. But here's the paradox. While political power is supposed to be equal, economic inequalities are widening. This means that, despite equal voting rights, economic disparities continue to grow, which can undermine the very foundation of equality in society. Even when a country experiences economic growth, it doesn't necessarily mean that this wealth is shared evenly. Sometimes, the benefits of growth go to a few, leaving many people behind. This results in a situation where not all citizens can lead a better life, even in a thriving economy. So this brings us to the crucial point of reducing inequality and poverty. Because economic growth alone isn't enough, we need to ensure that the benefits are shared more fairly, so everyone has the opportunity to improve their lives. This is essential to creating a truly equitable society. In Bangladesh, more than half of the population lives in poverty, which is a significant challenge for the country. Despite this, it often seems that democratically elected governments are not as eager as we might hope to address these issues head-on. One reason for this is that the poor make up a large portion of the voters, and no political party wants to lose their support. This creates a complex situation where the needs of the poor might not always be prioritized. In reality, democracies tend to struggle with reducing economic inequalities effectively. Even in countries with democratic systems, the gap between the rich and the poor often remains wide. For many of the poor, meeting basic needs like food, clothing, housing, education, and healthcare can be a daily struggle. This highlights the importance of not just political will, but also effective policies and actions to truly reduce inequality and poverty. This slide reminds us that addressing inequality is crucial, not just for social justice, but for the overall development and stability of a nation. It's an ongoing challenge that requires genuine commitment and targeted efforts from governments and communities alike. Now, let's talk about accommodation of social diversity. This is a crucial aspect because, in any community or organization, we encounter a wide range of backgrounds, perspectives, and needs. It's essential that we recognize and respect these differences to foster an inclusive environment. When we talk about accommodating social diversity, we're essentially ensuring that everyone feels valued and has equal access to opportunities. This can involve implementing policies that support different cultural practices, providing necessary resources for people with diverse needs, and promoting open dialogue. By doing so, we not only enhance social cohesion, but also strengthen our overall effectiveness and innovation. Remember, embracing social diversity aligns perfectly with our broader goal of creating a fair, respectful, and dynamic community. It's about actively listening, understanding, and adapting to the rich tapestry of experiences everyone brings to the table. Handling social differences, divisions, and conflicts is actually a significant advantage of democratic regimes. Unlike non-democratic regimes, which often ignore or even suppress internal social differences, democracies tend to be more open to accommodating diverse perspectives. This ability to manage social diversity is crucial because societies are naturally complex and made up of various groups with different interests and identities. Democracy is best suited to produce this outcome because it encourages dialogue, participation, and compromise. Of course, no society can completely and permanently resolve all conflicts among different groups, but the key is how well a system can manage and contain these conflicts to maintain stability. This is why the accommodation of social diversity is so central to the strength and resilience of democratic regimes. It is also necessary that rule by majority does not become rule by majority community in terms of religion, race, or linguistic group, etc. What this means is that democracy should not turn into a situation where one community dominates others simply because they form the largest group. Democracy remains democracy only as long as every citizen has a chance of being in the majority at some point of time. So, it's about ensuring fairness and equality, not just counting votes. It is important to understand that democracy is not just rule by the majority opinion. The majority always needs to work with the minority, because a healthy democracy depends on respecting different viewpoints. This cooperation helps governments function smoothly and truly represent the diverse views of the people. Remember, majority and minority opinions are not permanent. Today's minority could be tomorrow's majority, and vice versa. It's this fluidity that makes democracy dynamic and resilient. Looking at an example from Sri Lanka, we see the importance of accommodating social diversity. Recognizing and respecting different social groups is essential for maintaining peace and harmony in a diverse society. This example reinforces the idea that democracy must be inclusive, adaptable, and respectful of all communities. This has been achieved in various degrees in various democracies. The passion for respect and freedom are the basis of democracy. Democracies throughout the world have recognized this, at least in principle. Every individual wants to receive respect from fellow beings. Democracy stands much superior to any other form of government in promoting dignity and freedom of the individual. Once the principle of equality and respect for women is recognized, it becomes much easier for women to stand up and fight against practices and laws that are now legally and morally unacceptable. This recognition acts as a foundation, empowering women to challenge injustices. However, it's important to remember that recognition alone doesn't always translate into respectful treatment. Women still face challenges and sometimes aren't treated with the dignity they deserve. Thanks to the long and persistent struggles by women over the years, we've seen a shift in societal attitudes. There's now greater awareness that respecting women and ensuring their equal treatment are essential components of a healthy, democratic society. Historically, most societies across the world were male-dominated. This has shaped many social structures and norms, often to the disadvantage of women. When we talk about the dignity of women, we're emphasizing the inherent worth and respect that every woman deserves, regardless of societal barriers. Recognizing this dignity is crucial for building fair and just communities. So, in the context of our overall discussion, understanding these points highlights how important it is to continue advocating for equality, respect, and dignity for women everywhere. Perhaps it is this very recognition of democratic rights that truly makes ordinary citizens value their citizenship. When people see that their voice matters and that they have a say in how the country is run, it fosters a sense of dignity and respect. Of course, we cannot ignore that there are still instances of caste-based inequalities and atrocities. However, what's important is that these practices now lack the moral and legal foundations that once justified them. Democracy in India has played a crucial role in strengthening the claims of those who have been historically disadvantaged and discriminated against. It has empowered marginalized communities, giving them a platform to demand equal status and equal opportunities. When we talk about caste inequalities, it's about ensuring the dignity and freedom of every citizen. The goal is to create a society where everyone is respected and has the chance to thrive, regardless of their background. This slide highlights that, despite challenges, democracy remains a powerful force in promoting social justice and equality. A public expression of dissatisfaction with democracy actually highlights the success of the democratic project. It shows that democracy is working because it encourages people to voice their concerns and critique. This process transforms individuals from simply being subjects, those who are passively governed, into active citizens who participate and have a say in how they are governed. As people enjoy some benefits of democracy, like rights and freedoms, they naturally start to ask for more. They want to improve the system, make it more responsive, more inclusive, and more effective. This desire for progress is a key feature of democracy. It's always evolving. In fact, one of the most distinctive aspects of democracy is that the examination of its success never truly ends. When democracy passes one test, it faces another. It's an ongoing process, constantly being scrutinized and challenged. And this brings us to an important point. Our expectations of democracy serve as the criteria by which we judge whether a democracy is functioning well or not. These expectations shape our standards and influence how we evaluate the health and quality of democratic systems around the world.